Hey guys, Victor Guerrero with HBracing. I just wanted to go over some things here. I have had a lot of questions about what I do with my engines when they're brand new prior to even firing them up. Today we're using a Orion 7-port V3. Just some I had in my cabinet here. So I'm going to seal this thing up and show you guys kind of what I do. So first off, obviously you want to put a glow plug in it. I like to start with a clutch assembly. That way it's just less stuff you got to do later when trying to handle it. Today we're using a Permatex Ultra Black. It's like a high temp RTV sealer. You get it at AutoZone or Pep Boys or any type of auto parts, or even Walmart probably carries it. So first off, what I like to do is I'll start with the back plate. What you want to do is take the back plate off. Every manufacturer engines are a little different, but they're all going to be doing the same thing for the most part. Okay, what you want to do is push your piston to the top of the stroke, so that way when you pull this back plate off, the skirt of the piston doesn't get stuck in the engine. If you look there, there's a groove right there, and that groove indicates that's where the actual piston skirt will actually come down in there. So if you don't have the crank or the piston at the top of the stroke, it is not going to come out. You're probably gonna break the skirt off the back of the engine, or the back of the piston, sorry. Okay, so what I like to do now is obviously just inspect it. Generally they're brand new, so you don't really have to do much there. What you can need is a couple paper towels, rags, whatever you like to do. I like to just kind of wipe any extra oil off this here. So once you get the oil off, what you're going to do is take your gasket sealer here, throw a little on an X-Acto blade, and then I'll just form a thin bead around this back plate. If you get a little too much, it's not that big of a deal, but you don't want to have it to where it's making a mess inside the engine. Anything that oozes out of the outside, easily taken care of with just a rag, but you don't want to put so much to where it's literally filling the engine up with gasket sealer. This is nice thin bead all the way around. Now that you have that, like to make sure the piston's still at the top of the stroke. You're going to reinstall your back plate. In doing so, it's going to ooze out a little bit of the gasket sealer, which is okay. And what I'll do is I'll take my rag, or my towel, whatever you want to call it, and I'll wipe all the excess off. It's literally just a clean wipe. All you're trying to do is just have a small thin bead of sealant between the back plate and the case. So now you reinstall your screws. Don't crank them down yet until you have all four in. Alright, and I like to do on a crosshatch pattern. You don't need to kill these. It's nice and snug. I like to call it like a spark plug tight. And you see there, it's oozed out a little bit more, which is good. You take your rag or your towel, just finish wiping it. I like to use the black engine sealant. Our engine cases are black. Most engines on the market are black. It just kind of hides it. So from the naked eye, you can't even really tell that thing is sealed up. So now moving on to what I feel is probably one of the most crucial parts is the carburetor. Like I said, this will work for every manufacturer. What I like to do is pull the carburetor off. Now you have an O-ring seal here. I'll pull that up, and you're going to do the same thing. A little bit of gasket sealer here, and you're going to apply it down on the bottom side of the carburetor. Sorry, my stuff's a little old. It's a little chunky in spots. And you apply it generously. Like I said, you don't want to make a crazy mess. It's a nice thin bead, nothing crazy, between the O-ring and the carburetor housing. So now what I'll do is I'll push the O-ring back down. Makes a really nice seal now. It's kind of just like a glue in a sense, but this stuff's obviously not permanent. But now you see there I have a nice seal all the way around, a nice bead. You're going to reinstall the carburetor. You want to push down pretty nice, and you'll see there it kind of oozed out. So this is the tricky part. This is where a lot of people miss the focus here. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to slide your engine in with the carburetor still loose. I like to just put one screw in there just to hold it, so that way it isn't floating around and you have a true spot where your engine's supposed to go. Bear with me 1 second. I'll grab a ball end. Okay, so now, if you guys can see that, what I do is, for instance, I just threw this servo in there, one screw, just so you guys can get the idea. I'll put my servo horn on, and now I'll rotate this to where I have, and I'll put this on there just so it's more of a visual for you guys. I want to be as straight as possible and as level as possible. So what I'll generally do is stand above the car, and you can see there that's pretty freaking straight. Everything is nice and parallel with the servo, or I'm sorry, perpendicular with the servo. The thing isn't sitting like that. You want to have it nice and straight, and then if you look at it from the side or the straight profile, you want to make sure it's level. Once you're good there where you want it, you want to push down nice and firmly. Check it one more time, and then now you're going to tighten up your pinch bolt on your carburetor. And that you don't need to kill either. If you kill that, you'll actually crush the insert for your carburetor. As you can see, this thing's still loose. I'll tighten that up in a minute. But main concern is making sure that I have a straight pull. I can adjust the level just by adjusting this this set screw here on this collet. Now I'm gonna pull the engine back out. Set the car aside. Okay, so this is where a lot of people drop the ball, in my opinion. I've seen this a lot of times. So now you have your pinch bolt, retainer, and then your actual pinch bolt. These both have opportunity for an air leak. There's air that can still leak it through here, and there's air that can leak through here. So the whole purpose of this is to make sure your engine is completely sealed up and there's no air leaks, there's no unwanted air coming into the engine. So basically what I'll do is I'll just make a little seal here. You don't need to make this look real crazy, just a nice little bead all the way around. I usually work in a circular motion like this to make it look nice and clean, and that's it. Before I forget, all the excess from the carburetor. I'll pull that off real quick. What I usually try and do is get majority of it with an X-Acto blade like this, and then I'll go in after the fact with a rag or a towel. Simple little wipe. And this isn't, like I said, this is why I choose black, because they make it in gray, they make it in silver, whatever the case would be. I like black because if you don't get it completely clean, it still looks good. It doesn't look like you have a mess everywhere. Same thing on this pinch bolt. This is going to take a little bit more because it's a little bit deeper of a cavity there. Like I said, work in a circular motion. Just trying to seal that whole thing. Just basically make it flat all the way across, as flat as you can. And that's that there. Make sure there's no holes. Sometimes the stringy stuff kind of gets annoying, so that's why I go into circular motion to try and pull it off, so it doesn't make too much of a mess. Okay, now I would suggest this on any engine that doesn't have a like a Reds, for instance. They have the side needle here. If you can see closely, Orion engines actually have this centerpiece that's pressed in, and there's a possibility, not saying it does leak, but there is a possibility that this can leak as well. So like what I like to do on the Orion engines, for instance, or any engine that that doesn't have a true seal right there, meaning it's not machined, if anything is pressed in there, basically what I do is I'll also cover this whole side right here. Same thing I did with the pinch bolts. It's just an added piece of security I like to do. Like I said, it is not mandatory, but it's just something that I do, and I get a lot of wear out of my engines, a lot of time, and I have very consistent tunes. So in my opinion, whatever you find that works, if it works, don't fix it, or if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I get in the mode of doing things, and if I have consistent with it and success, I don't change it. So other than that, that is sealing up an Orion engine, or for the most part any engine. When doing this, your carburetor actually well, it won't move even if your pinch bolts come loose, but know that if you change vehicles, you change cars, you're going to have to readjust everything and break the seal and reseal it on the carburetor side. I actually I didn't prepare it here, but I actually will take a filter as well, seal the filter boot to the carburetor, and then seal the housing that holds the air filter to the filter boot as well. When doing that though, you'll never be able to, not never, but it's going to be very difficult to pull your carb boot off. So I personally, once I put a carb boot on, it basically stays on the thing for the life of the engine. I never pull it off, unless obviously if my filter fell off. But with sealing everything, even if your zip ties are to break, your filter cannot fall off. So other than that, guys, this is Victor Guerrero with HB Racing. Quick little tutorial on how to seal an engine correctly. Thanks.